welcome to this podcast, part of the EU for Youth to Act project. This project is an initiative led by a group of European NGOs aiming at promoting active citizenship, democratic participation and social innovation for young people. Conveniently, we are today the 4th of January 2024, about 6 months away from the next European Parliament election. An important milestone in the political life of many European countries, giving us a great opportunity to reflect on European values and the topic of democratic participation for young people. I am Antonin, I am 26 and a volunteer at Culture Goes Europe in Erfurt, Germany. I have the pleasure of hosting this discussion with 3 wonderful participants. I invite them to introduce themselves. Maybe start with Fatima.
Hey, my name is Fatima. I'm also a volunteer at CGE for Germany. I'm 23 years old and I've been here for almost 5 months.
Thank you. Marina?
Hi, my name is Maryna. I'm living in Germany since 2016, so it's been some time. I'm a recent graduate from the master's degree in public policy. I have been working in this non-governmental sector and keeping an eye on what is happening in our region and in Europe.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Billy. I'm 20 years old and I'm actually from Ireland. I'm actually just interning here in CGE for around a month now. I arrived in Germany in approximately 4 days ago and I'm currently majoring in data science with a minor in business in Trinity College Dublin in Ireland. So, yeah.
And as for me, I'm also from France, which means I'm a European citizen. I will be voting for the European election here in Germany for the first time. It will be the first time for me that I vote outside of my home country. So that's a nice way to get started about this discussion. Let's talk about the upcoming elections and what they mean for us, starting with the basics. Are you familiar with the European Union and the benefits of being part of it? Who wants to start?
I think a lot of people are quite aware of what the European Union is, as well as mostly the benefits. But for the specific benefits, I think it kind of depends on the age group. So for example, I know most people around me in college they're mostly aware of the travel benefits of the EU, of interrailing and going around to different countries.
Like freedom of movement.
Exactly, yeah. I don't think a lot of us have enacted the freedom to work wherever. But I think it really depends on just the different group you're asking as to how aware they are of the different benefits of the EU.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially from an insider's perspective. For me, I view the EU also as a huge tool to promote peace among countries that used to be constantly at war in the past. It's really impressive to know that among countries of the EU today, there is almost no possibility of a conflict to imagine. Really, these countries are so interlinked that the rivalry that used to be commonplace and everyday present in all nations is now put on some other matters, maybe economical, maybe cultural, but there is no competition with guns anymore in the EU's borders. So for me, it's really nice.
I would like to specifically underline the economic cooperation and the economic benefits the countries experience. I like to travel, and during my travels, I would often see signs that some roads were built using the European funds, usually the social funds, and then there would be some equipment for sports for young people that has been put there using the same funds. So it's been a pleasant acknowledgement that EU has contributed to local communities, and residents could experience that almost everywhere.
Yeah, and as someone who is an outsider, who comes from a country that is not part of the EU, I also get to experience the benefits of European Union policies. For example, being an ESC volunteer, we are a partner country and technically not in the European Union, but we still get to experience the benefits.
Yeah, not only citizens of the EU can benefit of some policies, a lot of countries are partners, a lot of program can be also in the humanitarian sector, or where the EU invest funds. In the more local also policy, I feel like the EU has a huge impact in the world when it comes to some standards of, for example, quality of products, consumer standards. Recently, there was this ban of the specific iPhone like lightning charger to impose a universal charger all over the world, and I think few countries can have the power that the EU has in that regard to impose a norm all over the world.
Yeah, definitely. I think there's a lot of power that the EU has over like corporations specifically. I think a lot of you may be aware of like the EU's influence on like Ireland, because it's quite often known as like a tax haven, maybe. But yeah, I think it's great that it brings universal benefits to, like as Fatima said, to even countries that aren't even in the EU. Yeah, it's a great opportunity for a lot of people.
Well, with all of that in mind, sounds like it's really important, possibly in every one of our lives, even if we are our own citizen, like what is the EU, how does it work? And also that it might be interesting for every person living or working here to have their voices be heard. Especially when we talk about young citizens, how would you evaluate the level of involvement of young people in terms of active citizenship and democratic participation in the EU in general?
I think it's relative, like everyone's experience is different. For example, to me, I think like I've met a lot of people who try to use their privileges and use their voice to make the life better, even not for them, but even for everyone around them who are not so privileged. But I know that for a fact that it's I'm talking from what I've seen, from my surrounding, and of course, like there's always a space for improvement.
Yeah, I'd actually like to back you up on that, Fatima. I think the people that I'm kind of around with, like my general friend group, and more so like the people around me, we're not really like that civically engaged. Like even with our college's students union, like there's like 30 people in my class, right? And then there's like an annual election for like class representatives. I was the only person that went and voted. And even the person who was like running to be the class representative forgot that the election was taking place. So that's like kind of, that actually kind of, I think that paints a very nice wider picture of the general civic situation in Ireland. If I'm being completely honest, like I didn't even know there were like European Parliament elections in 6 months. I just found out about that yesterday. It's definitely probably a problem on my part as well. But I'd love to know more about like these opportunities to engage with the union. If they're probably better advertised and better circulated, I suppose.
Also, active citizenship, democratic participation, it can take a lot of forms, not only voting, not only being aware of all the political stuff that is happening. It can be, of course, volunteering, that's one thing, but also you can just, like, for example, go to a demonstration or go to some cultural events that have a political meaning to them and support certain artists or groups that promote some ideas. That's a way also, I feel, to be active that maybe a lot of young people do without realizing how politic it can be.
Mm-hmm.
However, Antonin, I would like to bring that this going to vote is the quintessence of this democratic participation, because otherwise, how would you make sure that your voice is heard? How do you deliver your needs to the politicians so that they would implement the policies that would bring about the change? So for me, if I looked at the data and I checked this last elections that we had in Germany for the European Parliament in 2019, there was the big news about having the record turnout. So there were more than 60% of population going to vote. However, in terms of young people, this was significantly less. This was just about 50% of those who are above 18 going and casting their votes, which says a lot. Because if you take it into consideration with the demographic structure of Germany, you would see that those over 60 represent quite a big number of people. And obviously when they go to vote, they have bigger influence on the policies the parties voted for, and therefore the end results. So for me, it's really important to bring these young people to casting the vote and making sure that they represent their interests are also represented.
There is this idea of like civic participation to election is really important. It's that you can have a lot of activism and stuff, but if you never go to the ballot, no one is gonna register that, and the parties might not act. I can really read what you are saying. Also, if I can add some statistic, you talked about the young voters. Well, for the older voters, there was 66% of voters aged 60 to 69, and 64% of voters aged 70 or above. So it's really a huge difference, which makes the older generation, which is already more and more represented in the demography of the country, being even more represented electorally, which means that some subject that matters the most to younger people might be not looked upon as much in electoral results. So yes, this gap in participation, I feel, has a really bad impact on representation of young ideas.
That's true, and we can ask here the question, why do young people don't go to vote, right? What is the reason for them not to be so engaged? I would like to hear your opinions here. I've just read some statistics.
For me, I think it's mostly skepticism about like their voices are being heard or not. They probably, most of them think that they don't, their voice can't make a difference, which is a quite big deal. Or maybe some youngs are just too comfortable, too privileged to change anything.
I suppose like on my end, there's also kind of an information gap. Like I feel like if information regarding like how you can vote, where you go to vote, and like how to like actually research different candidates that are going to be in the election, because of that information gap, I don't think it's very accessible for a lot of people my age to kind of like go out and vote. And while the concept of actually making a difference and having our voice heard is very nice, I think like you said, Fatima, it's really like a kind of a personal feeling like, am I actually really going to, is my vote really going to count? Is it really going to change anything? Like, is like my one vote, I don't think it's going to change anything. I think a lot of people probably like share that kind of mindset, which is definitely a huge problem, I suppose, like in this day and age.
I feel a lot of this skepticism about the political sphere in general, like the idea that politician parties, they make promises, but in the end they all are the same, and not like, there's this idea that comes up a lot, and also when it's not discouraging people to vote, it might encourage them to go for more extremist parties that they view as outside of this system of politics. So it can have a really bad impact, this skepticism, this discouragement towards civic participation and voting especially. I think that maybe political parties don't really know how to communicate with the young people. They might try to modernize, to reach out through social media, etc., but still it's always clumsy. Always, like, it's not something you can relate to when they try to speak. Like, you have politician 50 years old trying to make a TikTok and it's just cringe.
Yeah. I'm not sure if you saw, like, there's this one British YouTuber. His name was like Nico Amalana, and he ran for like the London mayor. And he was like obviously the youngest person. He had like no experience. He was like he did YouTube, right? He was like a full-time YouTuber, but because he was able to like reach out to young people in a way that resonated with them, he got like a record turn. He managed to get like a record turnout for young people, and he became like the 4th most voted candidate in like London like mayoral elections, which is like absolutely unprecedented. So I think that actually just goes to just how important it is to like actually engage with young people in a way that's kind of meaningful to them.
I think when people cast their vote for a comedian rather than from a professional politician, it says a lot about the opinion they have on professional politicians.
Exactly.
Picking up on what you said, Billy and Antonin, I think that's the case we see in Germany, especially in Thuringia and our border region, Saxon-Anhalt, where AfD, Alternative for Germany, is really picking up the voters. And you'd be surprised, but the majority or a quite big chunk of the voters are between 18 and 24. You know, it's
that is frightening. Yeah.
Right? And if you look at the experts trying to research that question and going out to young people and asking them, why do you think is this happening? They would often say that it's either very complicated to understand the system and what is happening in Berlin, what is happening in Bundestag, why the current politicians are struggling so much, why they're making so much fuss about this raising costs of heating, and why the economic situation is not favorable for young people and they have to look for constant internships and try to pay their rents. So they are really struggling to identify with the current political parties. And as an alternative, they really do seek somebody who is opposing those known parties, and often that alternative is Alternative for Germany. So that's why they end up with the blue votes, and then the parliaments have to work with this. So it's. I hope that the politicians would not only see this as more getting radicalized and use voting for the nationalistic ideas, but rather that the classical politicians and classical parties would think how to reform themselves to better address the needs of young people.
Yeah, there is maybe this idea of a vote that is more like about contesting the political establishment than about accepting the ideas promoted by these parties. Like young people in general are more open than previous generation when it comes to questions like gender equality, homophobia, or racism. Like the young generation is still way more open than their elders. But this overrepresentation of more radical and reactionary or conservative, super conservative parties shows that maybe even with this openness, the political awareness doesn't really translate into votes that follow these ideas.
Yeah, and like you said, the presence on social media, so AfD is extremely popular on TikTok, and they make really stunning videos with making fun of the current politicians and
trends.
Yeah, and following the trends and making this polarization and engaging their viewers in comments. And once these videos pick up the interest of more and more viewers, obviously the next person who is opening TikTok will watch a video from AfD. And what if it's a certain year-old who gets the smartphone for the first time in their life and then just keeps on looking at the same type of videos.
We've been talking about young people and their electoral preferences and how they can or participate or not for who they will vote. But we should also talk about maybe the diversity of this group that we call like generally young people. Do you recognize differences between different groups of young people? Because it's not just like a monolithic block of people between this age and this age. What can you say about maybe that?
I suppose in my own situation, I grown up in Ireland. I was born and I grew up in Ireland. I feel Irish, but then again, like there are times where like I feel like the groups of people who I naturally levitate towards it, like social interactions, are people in my situation who come from like a migrant family, but like have grown up in the West, as you would say, and I think democratic values aren't really passed down in my group of friends. I suppose I don't think I could probably I can probably give a very objective or subjective point of view coming from a proper Irish family, I guess, because I can't really relate to that. Naturally, the values in my family are passed down to me as well, and there just isn't that big of an emphasis on civic engagement. In I would say my family's values. So
interesting.
That's probably the point of view I can offer.
When it comes to family values, it's true that I have the luck of having been born in a family who was really politically aware, I guess. And when I was a kid and my mother went to vote, she took me with her in the polling and showed me, okay, this is how you do, this is what... and we had conversation about, okay, and I asked my mom when I was a kid, what is left, what is right? So, I had this environment around me that encouraged me to ask these questions and to find out also by myself.
Yeah, I mean, like, cause like Chinese families, it's just not that big of an emphasis on like going out and voting, I suppose.
Yes, I can also relate to that.
Yeah, right.
For us, to like, we are kind of adjusted to being more politically neutral. So being too, like, getting your voice up isn't like too encouraged. So I think it's more about like how you grew up, which setting you grew up, or maybe your access to education, or even internet, like how you are willing to educate yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that sometimes it gets to the even other extreme where your family could criticize what the government is doing and be constantly in the
democracy is a sham. Don't
Absolutely, yeah. I would not be surprised if some kids hear this, and of course growing up where your family questions the current system, you yourself then on to take these values and then try to really look into details of how things are actually connected, who is behind what, and you wouldn't believe everything just on the plain sight, and you wouldn't probably believe in the democratic processes too, because at the end of the day, maybe it's not you deciding things, but some global corporations who have certain interest on the topic, right? So it's this belief in having the voices heard and making your voice important voice. It's something special, I would say.
Yeah, I feel there is something about that to be said, is that maybe when it comes to voting, the political parties only take into account people who vote. They will not make a platform, they will not make a program for people who don't go to the ballot box. So this is also like a vicious circle of people not feeling heard, not participating, and then being left out because of that. Politicians won't do efforts to go into neighborhoods, for example, with majority of migrants, because migrants don't always have the right to vote, and when they do, they are maybe less inclined to do so. So there can be a vicious circle there, I feel, in there that discourages political parties to involve themselves with these other groups.
I also wonder how it works in terms of the parties that get less results to be allowed to join the parliament. Even for European Union, I think there is a certain percentage you have to reach by, right? Is it 5%?
It depends of the countries. Certain countries have a minimum vote threshold, others don't. I think in last election in 2019, Germany didn't have a threshold, and that's how, for example, micro parties like the Pirate Party got representative.
Or Die Partei. I think the other party that I mentioned, Die Partei in Germany, that's the one that is called Sarcastic Party, because it just tries to make fun of everything that is going on in the common political realm, and because they are so sarcastic about these issues, they have the hearts of many voters.
Isn't that because I know like the Ukrainian president Zelensky, he used to be a comedian, right?
Yeah.
And then he like made, and his entire like rise to fame was through like making fun of the current political situation. Like, didn't he have a show on that? And then like he eventually became the president, right? Like, I just want to read that. I just thought that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
These figures coming outside of the political elite to become popular can also resonate with what happened in the US with Donald Trump, who was just like a businessman and a TV star, basically, becoming president. And earlier than that, maybe Ronald Reagan, also a president in the US, former actor, popular person, becoming president. I think a lot of countries are maybe subjected to this spectacle policy also, like maybe people can mix a bit of what they see between fiction and reality sometimes.
But I think there's also like that nice added touch of you get to see like this person in kind of a different light. Because I imagine like most politicians, it's just them on the stage saying, "Oh, I think this should be the case. I think this policy is good for everyone." But then again, like actors and like public figures, they have like the added benefit of the public getting to see them in like a different way, and it like helps you relate to them a bit more, I suppose.
Being relatable is a huge challenge for politics.
That's true, right? Because if we question where the politicians are coming from, what's their like family situation, we mostly would see that they come from families who were politically involved too, who were part of the party system for very long, and they got the education in the prestigious universities, probably in one of those that is the hub for every other politician in the EU, right? So how do we say that they represent what we really need and they feel our pains?
Maybe.
Especially being older than us, somebody who's in their 40s. Can they remember their early age too?
It will be interesting maybe for political parties, and some try to do that sometimes, to try to involve more people from the civilian society, people who are not career politicians but who might be like activists or just regular person with a regular job but who have had some moment to express some ideas, or like to go out of this elite of politically connected people who grew up in that circle and try to reach out more to the general society.
Yeah, no, definitely I agree as well. It just seems, I mean, to me, like a lot of our politicians just seem like so kind of artificial in a sense, because you just can't relate to them at all, like what they're fighting for, like their background.
Just the idea, like you just see a facade, though you don't know what is behind this person, this public person.
Actually, they have to have a facade as well, because you can't just,
It's like they were created like to be that person.
I think back at home, often the politicians in our parliament would be somebody who holds a business or who are quite famous in the region, and then people would locally vote for them because they would be known like this. So it would not often mean they would have education to become politicians or to implement the right strategies and policies. So that also has this double side to it. I know that in Iceland they've tried to involve experts to bring on the issues that the parliament decides, and I think that's quite a nice approach to have a professional opinion.
This was a thing during COVID in certain countries. They created scientific councils to advise the government on policies. I think, especially in the time of crisis, it's important to ask the actual expert a question. People who are not concerned with the electoral results for next elections, but who are concerned with actual long-term sustainability, for example. Might be interesting to involve more of that in our current politics.
Exactly, Antonin, and I would like to follow on that. So from my still youth perspective, since being under 30 counts for me too, I would like to see policies that are long-term, and when I say long-term, a really long-term, 20 to 25 years at least, but at best maybe 50 years ahead. So something that would really work for generations. So something that whenever I have my family and my family is there, that they're gonna have the benefits of what we're doing today, and not just having the luxury of living currently in a wealthy system, but having in mind the future generations.
Confidence in the future is something that we lack in a way. I think we have a desire for more confidence in the future.
Yeah.
Regarding hope for the future, we can still go back to this subject of the upcoming European parliamentarian elections. What will be your key message to young people, therefore, to motivate them to become active citizens and maybe take part in these coming elections?
Well, actually, Anthony, I feel like in order for people to want to become active citizens, they first have to feel some kind of connection to the union first. So I suppose my key message would be to just find as many opportunities as possible to get more involved with the EU. And for example, because I went on an interrailing trip, and the only reason I went was because just one day my statistics lecturer in college was like, by the way guys, I don't know if you know, but there's a competition going on where you can win a free interrailing pass. And then I just called some of my friends, we applied together, and we won. And we basically just went traveling around Europe for a month, and I think that was the moment that that month was the time where we felt the most European. And it was also the time where we for example, because we went into this trip, I knew German, one of my friends knew French, another friend knew Italian, and two of my friends spoke Spanish. And then we were like, lads, no matter where we go, we are sorted. Maybe with the exception of Eastern Europe, but no matter where we go, we are sorted. And it turns out I was the only one who could kind of use my German to pass by. None of them could use their language that they studied in secondary school. And that's the time where they regretted it the most for not knowing another language to communicate with people. And it was literally on that journey, when we were just in our hostel, they're already on Duolingo, trying to frantically learn a language. And it's the same story for like everyone I know who has gone on an interrailing journey where they just really, really want to have, like they really regret like not properly learning another language and not like getting more involved with like their European identity, I suppose. So and even just like even like me being here, it was just through another opportunity that like my college offered that I like went out and searched for myself. And even like and you're a European Solidarity Corps volunteer.
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that either. So yeah, it's all really just all about knowing like what's out there and what ways are there to kind of connect with the EU, I guess. And it's only then will you actually be able to want to become an active participant in the democratic process.
Really nice. Well, thank you for this. I think it's really inspiring for a lot to listen about that, because a lot of people also are not aware of this opportunity. So it's good to communicate about this and encourage people to look for them.
For my message, it would be to be more present, adopt more, even if you feel like wouldn't matter. You don't know when you put yourself out there by being present. You don't know how many people you can actually inspire. So just do it. Simple as that.
Thank you. Yes, citizenship is an active citizenship is not only about voting. Voting is an important part, but whatever you do, policies will affect us. You will react to these policies. You will talk about them with your family or friends. In the end, I think like it's still really important to vote, because parties do not react to people who don't vote. They don't make platform to help people who don't vote. If you have the right to vote, please use it, and maybe also think about those who don't have this right. If you don't know what to vote for, maybe think about those who can't and what they would love to have. That might be a good motivation to go to the polling box.
I agree with that. I think I would like to address young people. Dear young people, there are no easy answers. There are no easy solutions. Life can be very, very complicated, and the system we live in is for sure very complex. So I know that you are already under a lot of pressure, living in the 21st century that is cosmic speed, and you have so many expectations from previous generations. But remember, it's okay, you're doing great. Look at our beautiful planet. We're plenty and we are very diverse. Let's enjoy this diversity, appreciate each other, and be kind to each other.
Thank you very much. That will be our closing word. Thank you, Fatima, Maryna, Billy. Like, it was really nice having this talk with you. I look forward to listening to what our other partners are gonna produce as a podcast. Thank you very much for listening. Have a great time.
Thank you, Antonin, for hosting us.